You know what one of the most vulnerable joints is, and one of the most dangerous styles of submission that's legal in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? It's wrist locks. Wrists are actually quite delicate. If you take a look at them, there's a ton of little bones in there, a ton of little ligaments. We use our hands a lot. And when you have something like a wrist lock, regardless of whether it's this kind of wrist lock, like we're here, this kind of wrist lock, we trap his arm, an outward Aikido style wrist lock, which hardly ever works in Jiu-Jitsu unless you're training against children. This kind of wrist lock, which actually is one of my favorites. They're all effective. They can all be used safely, but they can be really dangerous if they're applied with energy. Like if we're here and I get so excited because I've just learned a new wrist lock on YouTube and I go here, bang, right? Like there are YouTube videos of people winning jiu-jitsu matches out there and the guy walking away like this. It sucks. That's going to take a ton of time to heal, and often it also requires surgery. Wrist injuries are really tricky. Wrist injuries are really tricky because there's so many little bones in there that if you go to the ER with a broken wrist, a legitimately broken bone in there, there's a good chance the doctor on call, is after he ascertains that you're breathing and have a pulse, he's kind of happy. So now he's going to look for obvious breaks, and he's not going to see the break in there. So a damaged wrist that's been damaged for more than a couple of weeks, you have to go see a specialist. That's expensive. It's time consuming. Those breaks can be hard to find. Now you're often talking like transplanting a sliver of bone from the hip into a wrist bone to heal because they don't heal. It's a giant pain in the ass. So avoid getting a wrist injury and avoid inflicting them. And the trouble is, so one of my favorite wrist locks, Richie has me in rear mount. I defend the choke. I managed to get palm to palm on the upper hand. I turn here. I bait him to come to mount. Honestly, I get this a fair bit against people who don't know me. And now, I've got a Sankyo wrist lock. See how little that motion is? Now the trouble is, if I'm going against somebody who's not a really good grappler, or somebody who's got a huge ego, when he's here, he knows his wrist is in pain. But if he throws himself that way, pop, pop, pop. Or if I get excited, like, haha, I've got you now. I'm going to destroy this wrist. When I get here, things go into slow motion for me. It's almost like it's exactly like a heel hook. I apply it very, very slowly, and you know what? If he uses that time to like strip my hands off, to grabs my little finger and strips my grip, that's okay. I didn't injure my training partner. Also, if he does something stupid, like tries to do a forward somersault, I'm going to let go. You know, the analogy to a heel hook is actually pretty apt. The wrist lock is the heel hook of the upper body. What am I attacking when I'm doing a heel hook? Used to be the knee. Now, with the more modern way of doing the heel hook, it's mostly the ankle. What's the analogous joint to the ankle in the upper body? It's right here. It's small, it's easy to break, it's easy to injure. So any of these moves can do as much damage to his wrist as a heel hook can do to his ankle. So do not do them hard, and be prepared to catch and release if the guy's a moron. You can also do them inadvertently. I once damaged a friend of mine. Go here, please. The first guy I ever trained jiu-jitsu with, like my first real jiu-jitsu instructor. We're here, I'm passing his guard. He was bench pressing my hips, which was a mistake. And I was like, ha, I've got an answer. And I just twisted, no, leave it here. I just twisted my hips in this way, hard. There was a pop. He yelled. His wrist took like a year to heal. It was essentially this wrist lock administered by my hip dynamically because he didn't want me to pass his guard. So you have to be careful if we're here of doing things like hurting his wrist here, or if his hand gets caught in a bad position like this, of driving in. Richie's smart. He doesn't want to be caught in this, so be dumb. If we're here, if I dive in here, whoop, inadvertent wrist lock. It's not cool. It's much harder to heal a wrist than it is to heal an elbow. Probably even harder than to heal a shoulder, although you don't want to injure either. You want to avoid injuries. So wrist locks are the heel hooks of the upper body. Treat them as such. Use them, but use them responsibly. What's that saying? You're wearing the comic t-shirt. With great power comes...
more power. The women.
With great power comes great responsibility.